Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Parenting Rescue with me, Big Papa Bryan Post. This is officially episode number one. It's kind of a continuation of the preview episode we did. We'll call that number one. Let's call this officially episode number two. I hope you like my background. What do you think about that? Got the little green screen going with a cool background of the Golden Gate Bridge. So we're going to jump right in because these reviews can tend to take a little bit of time. And we picked up last time, if you didn't get to watch the preview episode, it's with the Potter family from a Super Nanny show. We got into a few minutes, and we're going to pick up with that show and then continue to talk a little bit about what's going on there. So let's just hop over to Super Nanny. And you guys can see that right here. We're at number, let's see. Hey, let's see if that will help you see me even a little better. We'll pick up right here where we left off.
And he says, "Yes, I am," and he literally walks out the front door. And then you don't follow through the consequences that happens for not listening. And he knows that because you give empty threats, you have to break them up. You have to recognize that everything you're familiar with right now has to go out the window. Because what you're familiar with now, what you're secure with right now is dysfunctional and it's breaking your family. Chris, I spoke to you in the backyard yesterday when you very openly spoke about your own upbringing and that your father led the household with the decision.
What I like about what the nanny's doing here is she's actually spending time with mom and dad. She's working on gaining a better understanding of their relationship, but it's pre-briefed. I mean, there's not a lot of time. Maybe there's more that the camera actually doesn't show that goes on here, but it's pretty brief, so we don't get to see a lot. But the reality is the true healing for this family is going to happen right here in this dynamic.
Yep. Families have evolved. Parents have evolved. It's changed.
Maybe that was an old-fashioned way of looking at things, but it worked.
You know why it worked? Your mother sat back and allowed your father to make those decisions.
Right.
It worked.
What's wrong with that?
Because you're not married to your mother.
But I always liked the results of that environment.
Get over it. We're not them. We have different children. We are very different. I work outside the home a lot. It's not the same. I'm so tired of being compared to it and hearing about it. I want to focus on us, on our kids, on our situation, on us. She's trying to talk to you, and you're not listening. That breaks down relationships.
There's obviously some deep pain here with the couple that needs to be explored on a bigger level. So there's an underlying communication, and it's because families are connected via a rhythm, a physiologic rhythm. So they get connected cellularly. When you live with someone, when you've been married to someone, when you have children, you have a cellular connection. It's called a neurophysiologic connection. It's a feedback loop, and there's a scientific process called entrainment where families literally get connected through their cellular system with one another, and so there's this constant rhythm that goes on in a family. And so when you think about the conflict that a mom and a dad may be experiencing just in their communication, in their kind of core values with one another, this is the river that rolls underneath the theme of the family, the rhythm of the family. So there's this other rhythm underneath the entrainment of the family that's playing out that has to be discussed and has to be worked through. It has to be expressed, processed, and understood so that we can actually, these waves underneath here, the undercurrent, if you will, the undertow. If you've ever been in the ocean and swimming in the ocean, you know the waves come, and then there's a back pull, and that's the undertow. And that's actually how people drown when they're in the ocean, is because they can be playing in really, really pretty short, small waves, but the undertow, the undercurrent, pulls them back into the greater ocean. And you've got to learn to surrender to that undercurrent and relax. And then once you relax and it pulls you out of ways, then you can come back and you can swim to the beach. But if you struggle in that undercurrent, it's a great analogy, right? If you struggle to fight the undercurrent, it just pulls you further out. And that's how people end up getting drowned. They get overwhelmed. They get drowned because they're being pulled back. So we have to really address that undercurrent in any family. It's that nonverbal communication that's playing out that is actually giving way to what's on the surface.
It creates hostility.
They just wanted to cheat.
Let's move on and talk about yourself, Chris, and Noah.
See, I think that the emotion that's being demonstrated here is actually a sign of a deeper level of emotional pain with this couple. It's not just the stress of the kids. It's not just the lack of the communication. There's some deeper core breakdown that has occurred. And I'd like to actually encourage, even right here in this moment, the opportunity to get more into those emotions, like maybe even direct towards Dad. Dad, what are you feeling right now? And ask him to express what he's feeling. Ask Mom to express what she's feeling at a deeper level. Because a lot of times when we express our emotions and we give in to what we're feeling, deeper stories come about. And it's those deeper stories that forms the undercurrent.
Reflection, the way you are with him. You're rude, and I can guarantee you what you are doing right now is breaking his spirit. And you get angry, you yell at me 100%, and I expect you both to give.
Let's move on with this family a little bit further. All right, let's start here. This is a good one.
Coming up on Super Nanny, Joe teaches Dad a lesson in respect.
Does that give you the food in this house is really all over the place, because while Dad berates the kids, Mum pacifies by letting his kids walk all over her. So what I need to establish first and foremost are some great house rules. But as they were writing them down, one of the rules touched a nerve.
Treat each other with respect. Will they understand? Will they understand?
They have to explain it and give them an example. An example is the operative word here, because you've not been very good at leaving that example for the kids. You've lost tempers and shouting and yelling, and they turn around and say, "But you don't do it. You shout at us. But you tell us, and you tell us." And what do you say? Does that give you the right to talk to another human being that's demoralizing and disrespectful?
So let's talk about this for just a moment. Rules. Just and this is probably a sensitive issue for me because I have problems with authority. So just the very word rules, I don't like the word rules. I like guidelines. I like family principles. I like family beliefs. So our family beliefs. But rules implies that there's this certain rigid structure that if I break it, that there's some automatic consequence and some kind of punishment. So what about if we just change those words rules to something else, and then automatically they get into respect? And this is important because we're laying down these rules, and I like to think about what are not only the words that I use, but what are the actions that follow those words. Don't just write down rules and then don't follow through. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't be inconsistent. So it's very important. Children, their brains need consistency. All of our brains need consistency. All of our brains need predictability. So how can we be consistent to the things as adults that we are putting forth with our children?
And then expect them to show the same respect to you.
Well, what should I say?
You diffuse the situation, cut it straight off. Actually, right now, this conversation I do not appreciate.
Yeah, you can't have a fight if one person refuses to fight.
Correct.
Bringing respect into our home, I think, is going to make all the difference.
Actually, there's a reason why you can't have a fight if one person refuses to fight. And so I think that what we're going to find as we go through Parenting Rescue with most of these kind of shows is, yeah, there are things in the dynamics. There are things in the moment to moment. There are different things, like the nanny does timeout where I would never do timeout. But what you're going to find, and this is something that has defined my career, is I want you to develop an understanding as to why you do the things that you do. Your understanding is what dictates everything. Stephen Covey says, To know is to do. So when you say, I know something, you are implying also that you simultaneously do it. So you have to have an understanding that is consistent and congruent enough that communicates that my knowing is backed up by my doing. If your knowing and your doing are not congruent and consistent, you're going to be missing the boat.
For Joy and I and all the kids, there hasn't been a lot of respect in either direction up until now.
So you're both happy with your rules there?
Yes, I'm happy.
Alright, good. Alright guys, can we have you all come over to the stats? Now that Mum and Dad have established the rules, I want them to present a united front as they convey the rules to the kids. Noah, what does this say? Treat everyone with respect. Do we know what that means?
Yeah, what does respect means?
To listen when someone's talking. All good to be standing side by side and explain to them that these are the rules and we're going to post them in the house and this is what we want to be followed and we're going to stick with it. Sound good?
Okay, so from a post perspective, teaching rules is all cognitive, right? So this is a part of that understanding that I want you to grasp. When you're laying out these rules for children, like all the children are there, they're sitting on the steps, they're talking, and they're on the camera. This is all fine and well because they're not stressed out. In times of stress, our thinking becomes confused and distorted, and our short-term memory is suppressed. You're about to see a telltale example of just that. Because as long as they're not stressed, yeah, they can think and they can read the rules and they can talk about them. But the moment they become stressed, their thinking becomes confused and distorted. Those rules, this little family kumbaya is no longer going to matter. Short-term memory, it's in the distant, far distant past. And all that matters in the moment is survival. And so we are really setting ourselves up. We set both ourselves up as parents and we set our children up for a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of resentment when we set these hard and fast rules during these non-stress times because we don't have an understanding as to what happens when we actually do become stressed.
Thanks, guys. Good job. Later on that afternoon, Ryan broke one of those rules. You need to listen to me, you need to come in the house. Which gave Mum the opportunity to follow through with discipline. You told him not to go out. You gave him that warning. He has to go in time out. Okay. Ryan, you're in time out right now because you chose to go outside even though I asked one of those rules. You need to listen to me. You need to come in the house.
Okay, perfect. This is perfect. So right now, the child breaks whatever the rule it is. He's going outside. She's got her hand on him. She's saying, you need to listen to me and follow the rules. He's trying to get away. So he's actually running away. So Mom's got him by the arm. She's trying. So there's conflict is already created. Stress is already created. Overwhelm is already created. It's only going to get worse from this particular moment. So we're going to just follow we're going to follow this route, and we're going to just see how it gets worse.
Which gave Mum the opportunity to follow through with discipline. You told him not to go out. You gave him that warning. He has to go in time out. Okay. Ryan, you're in time out right now because you chose to go outside even though I asked you not to. You're going to sit here for 7 minutes in time out. Set your timer for 7 minutes, Joy. Mum stepped up and followed through, but by no means was it easy. Doesn't feel good, does it? Even with time out. Oh, I'm tired. Why? I don't know. I feel bad punishing him. How's he gonna learn? Only if I show him. Oh, he was furious. It felt like he's been naughty. He needs to learn his lesson. He needs to do the timeout. He's calling Mommy. He's so.
In times of stress, our thinking is confused and distorted. The child, he broke the family rule, which number one tells you that he's stressed. An acting out child is a stressed out child. Number two, Mom is now stressed because she's got to reinforce the rules and she's viewing that she's been disrespected because the child has broken the rules. So she's trying to pull him back in order to comply. So that's number 2. Number 3, she then goes and puts him in the chair where he starts screaming, and now he's stressing everyone else out even more. Mom's feeling guilty. She's feeling overwhelmed. She wants to rescue him. She's trying to hold steadfast. The nanny's saying he's got to learn, and then we go right back to our understanding or lack thereof. In times of stress, our thinking becomes confused and distorted, and our short-term memory is suppressed. So if we operate from that principle, then what we are really saying to ourselves is this child is stressed out. So the number one thing that has to happen in this situation before any learning can take place is that I have got to get my child calmed down. I want you to hear that. If I can't get my child calmed down, if I can't get my child back into a regulated place, then ultimately I am not going to be able to teach them anything. So we actually avoid, from a post perspective, we actually would avoid this whole scenario by just letting the kid go on outside. Because he's going to go outside, he's going to calm down because he's no longer feeling stressed, he's no longer feeling overwhelmed. When he comes, and then we as the parents can calm down. When he comes back in, then we're going to talk about the situation. So I'm going to tell you how we jump, and we actually skip over all of this drama just by letting him go outside. And we're going to get to the same outcome.
And soon enough, Bryan started to test it. Hey, where is the car now?
The timer is doing nothing to regulate the child. The chair is doing nothing to regulate the child. The child being in the other room is doing nothing to regulate their core system. So all we're doing right now is we're focused on external control. And that's what so much of what we do in society when it comes to children and parenting practices is based in. It's external control. We're doing nothing to regulate the system. What we truly want to be doing is creating a regulatory environment so we can secure a relationship.
He was given her a run for her money. But it was important to step up with that authority. You cannot give up. Finally, Bryan sat the second.
So here's what's interesting, is that she's literally not able to do anything else while the child is in time out, right? So she's just waiting. And if he comes out of the timeout room, she's got to put him back in the timeout room. So she's completely distracted on listening to the nanny or trying to cook dinner or wash dishes and trying to make sure he follows through with his timeout. The timeout actually goes longer than 7 minutes because when he comes out of the timeout room or timeout chair, it gets reset. So now we probably have about a 10 to 15 minute span of time where mom's attention has been completely absorbed. The child continues to be stressed out. And so we're really not getting anywhere. Why not change that and just do a time in? It says, honey, you know what? Why come in here with me? And could you just, let's do a time in. Let's spend a little time together. Maybe you sit down. I can tell you're really stressed out. I know you're really stressed out when you start doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so that just tells me that we need some time. And I got to wash these dishes, so I need you to hang out in here with me for a little bit until you feel better. And so mom continues to wash the dishes. Say the child doesn't want to hang out in the kitchen, goes outside of the kitchen. Guess what the child's telling you? They're still stressed out. So let's say you have to go ahead and finish the dishes. You don't forget that your child is stressed. And now what happens is you set up a dynamic where you're literally continuing to reach out in a regulatory way to your child because they know they've left the kitchen. They know that you're going to be looking for them. So now they're thinking about you, which is because they're thinking about you, it's going to be reducing their stress, just that process. Like they're going to be caught in this dichotomy. They're stressed, and then they know that you're there. And so there's this challenge, this conflict that's getting created with the child just by asking them to come do time in. Most children don't have a problem with time in, but the parent is still able to get things done, and they're able to create the regulation the child needs to be able to get the behavioral compliance that they're looking for.
A minute straight, but he wasn't done to skip up. So, explain why it's been put in there. Next.
So the timeout is now over, and the child is still stressed out. Mom's stressed out. So what was the point of the timeout? That's what we have to ask ourselves.
Step, ask him to apologize. If he doesn't sincerely apologize for his behavior, then you're going to walk away for a minute and you're going to come back. Okay? Bryan, you're in timeout because you went outside when I told you not to. Can you tell mommy that you're sorry that you didn't listen and you went outside? I did. Okay. Can you take a deep breath and tell me you're sorry? You've already asked it. And he's telling you can't, so I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back. Come back maybe when you're ready. Okay? Go back in a minute and then you're like, you need to tell mommy you're sorry.
So what is happening on a nonverbal and verbal level of communication here? Not only do you have a child who's completely stressed, he says, I can't. Mom wants him to apologize to make herself feel better for this scenario she's put him through. The nanny's just going on based on what her experience is in working with children such as this. So mom's wanting the child to apologize. He's completely stressed out. He says, I can't. When a child says they can't, it's because their emotions are blocked. It's because their thinking's confused. He may not even know what she asked him to do. He's not calm enough. His thinking is not back online. At this point, he's still in his emotions. So then mom says, well, you're going to continue to sit here until you can apologize. So now there's a threat. So now we're jacking up the stress even more. You see how this dynamic, it's not sustainable. There's nothing in this dynamic that's going to make this child comply any different, any better than what he has done up to this point. There's nothing in this exchange that's actually creating more relationship.
Sorry, you didn't listen and do as you were told. Okay? He's either going to say it or he's not. Bryan, if he doesn't, you obviously need more time and you walk away. You ready to say sorry? He's practically lapped in my arms, was squeezing me tight, whispering in my arms, sorry, mommy, I'm sorry. Thank you, Bryan.
Okay, so let's.
It's not easy, but it's right, and you know what? They will actually appreciate it. Thank you. That was okay? Yeah, it was. It was almost like, hey, thank you. Like he needed that structure. He needed that discipline. He needed that from me.
So the child is told you're not going to get out of the chair until you apologize. Mom comes back. She wants him to apologize. It's just so confusing. As a parent, this has got to be so confusing to you because this is what society tells you to do. And we create these threats where we create these threats. We see our children get stressed out and overwhelmed. A regressed child is an acting out child, is a stressed out child. We then punish them for being stressed out. So the child is initially punished because his regulatory system isn't stronger. Yeah, listen to this. He's punished because his regulatory system isn't stronger to handle the stress that he's dealing with. So he attempts to run away. We catch him. We use power and control and force to put him in the chair. He's put in the chair. He's forced to stay in the chair until he stays in the chair until the 7 minutes. So the 7 minutes turns into 15 minutes. Mom's completely stressed out. She finally comes back to him. Now you got to apologize or you're not going to get out of the chair. So number one, you did your 7 minutes, which turned into 15 minutes, which means you did that, but that's not enough. Now I need you to apologize. And if you don't apologize, I'm just not going to put more time on the clock. I'm actually going to make you sit there longer until you apologize. You remember as a kid when your parent used to make you sit and sit at the kitchen table until you ate your peas, and your peas would eventually get cold, and you didn't want to eat those freaking peas. And so eventually you ate those freaking peas out of disgust, or you just didn't freaking eat them, and you sat there for an hour until your parent came in and felt bad enough, and then they screamed at you and yelled at you, or they said, get out of here next time you eat your peas. Remember how that scenario worked? This scenario is no different. There's so many of the things that we do in parenting today, which are just hybrids of the things that we experienced as children. This is why we can justify doing them, because really we have these imprints that say this is how we were parented, so ultimately this must be right. We have this unconscious imprint that says this is how we were parented, so ultimately this must be right. So you get this pseudo apology from this child. He hugs his mom. Hell, he wants to get out of the freaking chair. And then because of this unconscious message and because of what the nanny's like, she's like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. And mom goes back and she's reviewing this and she's like, wow, yeah, he really did need my structure. He really did need my limits. What he really needed was your soothing. Yes, you showed this happy face of this child because the little kid is happy to be out of the freaking chair. Of course he's happy. So now everything's made to be okay, but everything is not okay because the child still didn't get any core regulation. Nothing in the relationship actually got restored. So what could we have done? The mom could have let the child go outside. When the child comes back in, she could have said to the child, you know what? I'm sorry, honey. I wasn't tuned in. I didn't see what was going on. I didn't ask what got you so stressed out that led to the breaking of the rule. What was it that happened? Now we're taking responsibility. You see, oh, God. I literally could go on and on and on with this one simple dynamic. The mom could say at the very beginning, honey, before she's even, and I don't want to have to rewind this too much, but before she even pulls on the child's arm, taking responsibility is saying, what happened? What happened? It's my responsibility as the parent to understand what is happening to my children. If my child gets so stressed out that he can't comply with this rule, then the reason we have the rules, and I'm going to flip the script on you for a minute, the reason we have the rules is to give you a warning. It's like a woo, woo. What if you had a siren that went off? Woo, 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 every time your child was stressed out. Just like a heart rate monitor. If your child hits a level of stress that causes their heart rate to reach a certain level, that's signaling you that your child is out of their window of tolerance. And if your child is outside of their window of tolerance, they're outside of their window of tolerance. They're dysregulated. There's nothing they can do about it. Their window of tolerance has not gotten strengthened enough in order to be able to operate within it, to be able to maintain stress. So now what can you do to help them restore the window of tolerance? Maybe you could have just given him the hug from the very beginning. Maybe you could have invested the 7 minutes and then the next 7 minutes and then the next 3, 4, 5 minutes just spending time with him and trying to get a better understanding of what happened to even lead to the level of stress to where he broke the rule to begin with. Because what we've not discussed is we've not even discussed the freaking rule that got broke. That's not even been talked about. So all of this drawn out drama becomes a power struggle. And then we're able to finish it off by saying, oh, he gives me a hug and he apologizes. And then we justify it by saying he really didn't need the structure. No, the freaking kid needed your regulation. This is why parents end up in such a mess. Because we have all of this unconscious and conscious messaging that truly is ass backwards. It is not looking at the scenario. And all of this was because of a house rule that got broken that we're not even talking about. All right, let the madness continue. I wonder if this show could raise my blood pressure. I need to think about that.
That his tempo is a huge issue in this family. And whilst mum is learning to be more consistent with her discipline, dad knows that he needs to learn how to manage his anger. The reason why I brought you here to this gym is because I want you to get a grip on your anger. Okay. So that you can start to eliminate this. Because when you start to get frustrated, you start to get angry, then everything turns into turmoil. And we know that's destructive in the house. So we're going to do a bit.
Okay, so I love the fact that Joe is spending time with Dad, who obviously has anger issues. What's underneath anger? Fear is underneath anger. Anger is nothing more than a surface feeling for fear. Fear of being overwhelmed, fear of being helpless, fear of being hopeless, fear of not knowing what to do. And so we're going to take that to the gym, which is fine. It's fantastic. This whole little part scenario here, this is all very good. I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. Dad should be going to the gym anyway to blow off steam if that's what he needs to do, to reduce his stress so he can be more regulated. But to use this as this is how you're going to learn to deal with your anger. You need to deal with your anger. There's no dealing with anger. You have to understand anger so you can learn to be more mindful of it, and then you get underneath it so you can understand why it's there to begin with. What is the fear that is happening that's leading to the anger? And what are the messages and the imprints that Dad has in the way anger was handled in his family, ultimately the way fear was handled?
Boxing, boxing is when people are emotionally drained. They start to withdraw, they act out, they start to use bad language, they become disrespectful.
Right.
I like this part right. I like this part right here. I have to remember to pause the video or else you can't hear what I'm saying while the video is playing. But this is really good. I like what she says with this, and this is something important to understand, you know, in your family dynamics, is that when you're stressed out, and I think a lot of people don't get this, when you're stressed out, it's literally, energetically, emotionally, you are walking around punching the people you love in the side of the head. So when you're walking around your house and you're stressed, bam, it's like they're emotional slaps. And sometimes you don't even have to be talking to them. Just being stressed and just being short or cutting them off or rolling your eyes or feeling sarcastic as a parent, those are emotional slaps. And you're emotionally slapping these people who love you, which is then stressing them out. And then they start to feel like they don't know what to do. They don't know how to support. They don't know how to get away. You know, it just becomes more of a negative feedback loop. So it's important to really consider this dynamic. But I like what she's doing here.
You see that? Imagine that every time you lose it with your kids. They're getting punched because that is what's happened to them emotionally. That's tough, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
The one thing that you can't see is when people are emotionally drained. They start to withdraw, they act out, they start to use bad language, they become disrespectful.
Right.
An emotional punch, trust me, is worse than that.
When Joe associated the physical punch with an emotional scar, it started to hit home for me.
This is awesome because our brains, your amygdala communicates to the other person's amygdala. And what happens is when you are stressed, when you're in a state of stress, you're sending a vibration, and that vibration is the punch. And so sometimes having a good visual to understand the power, and I used to say to parents that when you come home stressed out at the end of the day, it's like you have the flu. And you're coming in and you're coughing all over your family. And the child with the most sensitive immune system, the weakest immune system, which is the child with the stress sensitivity, which is the child who's most easily fearful, is the one who's going to get sick first. So you have a responsibility. If you are stressed when you get home, take that noise upstairs to your room or to your bedroom, close the door and take the time you need, or better yet, especially if you work outside of the home, calm yourself down before you get home. Start paying attention and take responsibility for your own stress. I have a friend who used to, back in the day, he would stop and he would swim. He'd stop at the local Y and he would swim before he would go home. And he said every time he'd get out of that pool, it's like he just left all the stress in the pool, and he could be much more mindful and much more attuned just from doing that.
What, you done with the punching?
I'm tired.
You don't take them on.
No, I don't want any more Joe's punches. I definitely.
Again.
Conscious, I definitely gonna be in my mind when I catch myself saying something harsh to the kids. Because at the end of the day, I don't want them to be emotionally hurt by me.
I know that Dad's not completely there yet, but I'm making progress with him.
Coming up on Super Nanny, Dad tries to mend his relationship with Noah.
So I let you know, I was wrong. Marion.
Do not call us fired, Noah.
And Mom has to step up and take control.
Dad knows that his temper has been completely destructive for his family, and he needs closer, which is healing their
Opportunity to spend quality time with one another. This is pretty cool, man.
Oh my word, this is excellent.
What do you think, buddy? You ready?
Do countdown.
Yes, let's do a countdown.
Yes.
Okay. 5, 4.
Was it worth coming to the park with Dad? Behaviour's been wrong as a parent, and that you put it right. When you're accountable for where you've been and you take ownership from that, you clean the slate. This little boy will grow up and know that you know what, when he's not perfect, and when he makes mistakes, that's what you do.
Admit that he's wrong.
Yeah, fix it.
I thought.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much.
Let's listen to this because I think it's really important what she's saying, but there's also the discrepancy and the inconsistency of then the way we follow that up in our behaviors as parents towards our children.
The park was a wonderful experience. There's something to be said when you actually admit that your behaviour's been wrong as a parent and that you put it right. When you're accountable for where you've been and you take ownership from that, you clean the slate. This little boy will grow up and know that you know what, when he's not perfect and when he makes mistakes, that's what you do.
Admit that he's wrong.
Yeah, fix it.
I thought that was a great opportunity for me to sit down with him and have a heart to heart and let him know the things I had done were wrong. And I wanted to talk to you for a little while. And it's a little emotional. It's because I feel really bad for how I treated you. And I was very rough on you. And I just want to let you know.
This is awesome. This is such an awesome little piece here. This is essentially, this has the potential to be a bona fide emotional breakthrough in their relationship. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. This could have happened in the first hour of the nanny being there, had all the pieces kind of been pulled together. But this is where it's at. Dad's being heartfelt. He's being authentic. He is communicating emotionally. I'm always talking to you about connecting with your child, whether it's sharing your story, sharing their story, whatever it is, but you have to connect emotionally. See, a lot of times when we're stressed, we're so cognitive that we're just talking words. When you're just talking words, all your child can do is hear you. What you want your child to do is to be able to feel you. And this is a great example of a dad being felt. He's being felt because he is feeling. If all you're doing is talking, all your child can do is hear you. Dad's being felt because he's feeling. And sometimes you got to spend some time by yourself. You got to spend some time getting quiet, visualizing your child, visualizing their pain, visualizing your own pain, so you can open back up to that place.
I was wrong. Marion, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm going to change. Read some more, Nellie. I'm going to talk things out.
This is beautiful. This is beautiful. He says, Dad says, I'm going to change. This is the essence of parents apologizing, asking forgiveness, and truly making a concerted effort to do something different. See, a lot of times, there's two things that require to change a paradigm. Emotional impact and repetition. This is emotional impact. This is an emotional moment for this dad and this son that could change everything.
Okay.
My dad realizes that he was so tough on me for drug junkie and help us.
You needed to see his dad reaching out to him.
No rocket tonight.
The next evening, Mum asked Noah to put his things away.
Well, this is a beautiful scene. Okay, so this is, you know, that same evening or the next evening or what have you. It's time for Noah to put the rocket away. What you have to understand about the symbolism of the rocket for Noah is that, number one, he's excited about it. Number two, it was a special moment. It was a special day for him and his dad. So he's got a special kind of connection to this rocket right now. He's feeling some kind of way about it. Now look at everything that's going on in the kitchen. Mom's doing something. There's one child standing there looking, asking for something. There's another child in dad's arms. There's a lot of chaos and there's a lot of overwhelm in this moment.
They started to give her attitude.
But you said we could do it!
I think you misunderstood that because there's a half was said.
The kid says, you said we can do it. Dad's stressed. Okay, he's got a lot going on. What changes this dynamic? What changes this dynamic right away? What could you do different if you were this dad? What could you do different right now? And these are the things I want you to be thinking about when you watch and you listen. Eventually, I want you to be able to have insights before I even pause. I want you to be able to get to that place. That's a paradigm shift. When you can have insights before I pause, and then you hear what I have to say, you start to see where your paradigm is starting to line up with the post-parenting paradigm, with a love-based paradigm. Dad could simply say, son, I'm sorry. Put the child down, the other child down, or he could say, honey, just let him keep it right now. Let me go deal with this. You deal with this. You deal with this. I'll deal with this, and then we'll deal with this. We'll deal with him in a moment. Right? Calm down all these other things before you deal with this potentially very stressful thing.
And it was the perfect opportunity for Dad to step back and allow Mum to take the lead.
Why is this the perfect opportunity for Dad to step away from something that he has initiated? It's not the perfect opportunity for Mom to step in because now Mom's more of a threat because Mom hasn't had the same emotional breakthrough with the child as Dad has had. Dad needs to have the opportunity to step up and handle himself different than how he's handled in the past. Not put Mom in the line of fire because now the child resents Dad and resents Mom because Dad promised him that they were going to do this rocket together.
And discipline.
Do not call us liars, Noah. I don't like it at all. Look at me when I'm talking to you.
So, child's stressed out, right? Everyone's stressed. Mom's stressed, and she immediately comes in with, do not call us liars. Oh, God. It's so interesting to me. The whole scenario that we get to see is that the child needs to put the rocket away. Right? And the kid says, Dad, you said we were going to do the rocket. Dad says, I think you misunderstood. The kid says, you're lying. You lied to me. You're lying. Dad may be lying because Dad's stressed right now and he doesn't remember. The child calls him a liar. We don't want our kids calling us liars, but you know, sometimes we may lie or we may not tell the truth or we may not remember or we may not be fully honest. Mom comes right in on the lying. See, this is a pure example of the child manifesting a behavior, signaling a behavior indicative of an underlying stressful state.
You don't look at me, you're going to go to bed right now.
Now we're threatening. Okay, so now we're layering the stress. Where do you think this is going to end up? You already know where it's going to end up. It's going to end up in a bad scenario.
Okay, I want you to go to bed. Alright, you're not going to give me a choice.
Confused and distorted thinking. There's all this stress. Dad's feeling sorry right now because he's probably thinking, he's right, I did lie. Or I didn't follow through like I said I could do, but I can't undermine my wife, and I got the nanny behind me. So you got three adults all focused on this child, and you got this one little stressed out child in Dad's arms. So now the child, you didn't remove the rocket. Now you've called us liars. Now you're not telling me what I want to hear. You're not doing what you're supposed to do with the rocket. Now you're going to go to bed.
I'm going to go by the time I count to 3.
And now I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 magic, which is just telling you if you don't pull your regulation in immediately, it's going to get worse for you.
1. Oh, it's over, Noah, too.
So now Mom's not sure what she wants to hear. He says, I'll look at you, and she says, no, it's over. See, now she's in a confused and distorted place.
Let him make a decision. He has to walk himself up to his bedroom, otherwise he will lose.
See, nothing in the dynamic makes any sense because everyone's completely stressed out. I've got to believe that Joe is stressed out too because she's just not seeing how it's all unfolding right in front of her. So now she's moved immediately into control. Fear always manifests itself as control. It manifests itself as overpowering. It manifests itself as threatening. No one's seeking understanding here. No one's looking at the child's lack of regulation, the fact that he's completely stressed out. He should be completely stressed out because his mom and dad are completely stressed out. And now it's demonstrating that Joe's stressed out too. So how is he supposed to behave in any other way in this environment other than being stressed out, being completely stressed out? If the three adults around me are completely stressed out, then obviously I'm going to be stressed out too.
This spaceship. Come here for a minute. What's your next move? I don't know.
This is perfect. Joe says, stop the badness. Let me pull you aside and let's talk about this rationally. Now we all have an opportunity to calm down. Right? We could have already done this. Go take some deep breaths, calm down. Let's seek some understanding. Let's calm our stress down. Let's think about what does relationship do in this moment? What does relationship do in this moment? What did he really say? What's causing this issue? And this is why I like for you to mess up as a parent. I like for you to mess up as a parent so you can stop and you can review it and you can do better the next time. Let's see if that's where we're going to go with this.
I can't pick him up and bring him upstairs. You know what? You're going to have to learn to handle Noah. So you'll go over and you'll say to him, you've lost your spaceship. Okay, if he doesn't go upstairs.
Are you going to listen to me and go off into your room, or I have to make the decision?
I can't trust you though. Tell me why I can't trust you. What are you talking about?
This is negotiation. If Joe weren't there, it would have been the old pattern of debating with Noah and arguing with Noah as he continued to plead.
I suggest right now you listen to what your mother's saying because she's about to make a decision for you if you don't listen to her.
So that means I'm going to have to take the rocket away.
So just a moment ago, the child's on the couch. He's not even at the rocket, right? So just mom and Joe going and sitting on the couch pulls the situation in better. Right now he's on the couch and he says to mom, I can't trust you. That's a huge statement. Mom says if it wasn't for Joe, this would have gone on into some kind of debate and him continuing to whine. Joe says, look, kid, you're gonna do what we tell you to do, or you're gonna lose the rocket. And mom's like, you're losing the rocket, buddy. So it's like we're cycling. Obviously, none of this is geared toward relationship. It's all geared towards behavior control. I'm sorry. It's all geared towards behavior control.
Come over here for a minute. I'm looking into your fight with him. I'm getting into the fight.
Honestly, I don't care how it ends at this point because it's all bad, right? It's all stress. What I want to do at this point is I want to stop you as the parent and I want to pull you aside and I want to let him go on and do whatever he's going to do. I want everyone to calm down and I want to start talking about what was the communication, what happened to get us to this place. Because we're going to continue doing the same thing that we've always done at this point. Everything that Joe's recommending is really no different than what the parents have already been doing anyway. It's all stress.
What you are going to do is take the rocket, because he's been told that he can't have the rocket, okay? If he fights you over that, then it's going to break. Go and get it. Go and get it.
A lot of times I'd be called in to discipline, and to see her stand on her.
So at this point, Dad says a lot of times I'd be called into discipline, which just means he's coming in to punish, right? But he's actually feeling a little better because mom's like flailing around with this kid and they're fighting over this rocket. There's something in that gives him some comfort, but I think what it is he's always called into discipline, which means he ends up being like the bad guy. He's given an opportunity not to feel like the bad guy in this moment. And that goes back to the relationship between these two. There's a dynamic that's playing out between these two where they're not on the same page with one another. So dad's getting to actually be a little, feed into his helplessness and his overwhelm, and let mom be the bad guy for a time. And so that's feeling better to him, but it's not building a relationship anymore.
Oh, it's good to see.
And God, hold it down with your... Took his spaceship away and he had to go straight to bed.
That's how it ended. Spaceship gets taken away, he slams his door, so the parents have more control and more power. And that's fine and well with a 10-year-old, right? That's how that situation could not be. I shared with you how we could do it differently. What are you going to do when that 10-year-old turns into a 15-year-old? You think you're just going to take her stuff or take his stuff? It's not going to happen. Hang on just a moment. I'm going to pop up on my screen. It's not going to happen. You're not going to just take their stuff because that's power and control. Relationship gives you the ability to influence, not to control.
I'll be back in several days. Joy, I feel very nervous about Doughboy, but I'm just going to try really hard to keep hearing her voice and doing the things that she's shown me.
Listen, hold it down with your temper.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't want her to go. If I am not able to keep my anger in check, it'll be disastrous, really.
Coming up on Supernet.
Hey, Noah?
Noah gives attitude to Dad.
You're not hungry?
No, I'm not. You don't know that.
Thank you, honey.
And Dad gets himself in trouble.
But let's talk about the serious side of that.
When Super Nanny returns. And now, Ask Super Nanny. Ask Super Nanny.
How can I keep an eye on my teen's internet? Control over his temper.
Get over here!
And Mama's just fed up with it. They just wanted to cheat. Over the last few days, though, have they taken my advice? It's yet to be seen. Hello. Hi. Hey, John. Look what I brought. Oh boy. So we're going to start off taking a look at bike rides.
What would you rather do, like, for the next activity?
Build a go-kart.
Build a go-kart?
Yeah. Oh, honey, all the way over here. Fine. Noah, I like something like... Noah, you didn't eat enough.
Hey, Noah? You're not hungry?
No, I'm not. You don't tell that.
What I'm trying to do is have a conversation with you, and I want to establish that we both understand each other.
Ask me a question and it's answered.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you're not hungry. We're going to have ice cream after we're done with our dinner. You will not be having ice cream. You're understanding that?
Okay. What I'm pleased to see is how you've composed yourself. Yeah, that's a huge difference. You were very patient and matter of fact. Oh, good. Right. The way that was handled. The difference, Chris. The difference. And the fact that you stepped up is incredibly promising. And only your hard work in continuing to be conscious of the way you behave and how you deal with it is what is going to be.
Dad absolutely handled that better than dragging the kid down the stairs by his hair and forcing him to eat the food that had the hair in it. The truth of the matter is, the kid said he wasn't hungry anymore. He had eaten all he wanted to eat. He was done. So instead of just letting him go up to his room and regulate and do whatever he needs to do, the parents actually created more stress in the dynamic than even needed to be. Dad says to mom, you can't just let him leave. And then dad's actually interjecting himself in that role of the villain that he was trying to get out of and feeling so good about being out of in the earlier scene. So then he goes and pulls the kid down. You know, we're in the power. We're still in the power dynamic. We're still saying, look, if you don't eat, everyone else is going to eat ice cream. I don't care if you're not hungry. Everyone else is going to get ice cream. You're not going to get ice cream. So see, there's still a veiled threat. So the kid goes away saying, fine, I'm not hungry, fine, I don't care about ice cream. But then he goes in his room and what he really thinks is, my dad's an asshole. So there's like this relationship breakdown, even where there didn't need to be a relationship breakdown. Yes, dad did handle himself emotionally much better, but there's still a breakdown in understanding. That's what I'm telling you. It's our lack of understanding that generates so many of our challenges in a scenario like this. So I think we've probably seen about as much of this family as we need to see that we're going to be able to get out of. Obviously, we could get a lot more. I think the moral of the story here for the Potter family is that there's a breakdown in understanding. When you break down understanding or you don't get the full understanding as to why you're doing the things that you do, it's not going to be sustainable. You're going to ultimately revert back to what your imprints inform you to do. And your imprints are based on generations and generations of stress and fear and unconscious parenting. So I want you to be more conscious. I want you to utilize this show and these scenes that we go through just to investigate and pay attention to it and ask yourself, challenge yourself, what would I have done differently than what these parents did? And again, there's no disrespect to Super Nanny, to Joe, or to this family. And I'm very grateful, I'm very honored that they, put themselves out there and they allow us an opportunity to see these dynamics and these exchanges on camera, because we can all learn and we can all grow. God bless you. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Same time, same bat place, Thursdays, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we'll have another family that we're going to go in and rescue.